So today we'll explore the book The Language of Creation by Mathieu Pajot, who is a Christian Orthodox. We won't be able to get through the whole book. In fact, the second part is a bit more, um, there's more substance to it. We'll just do the first part, which is basically going to help us understand what a symbol is. The first thing we need to know is that ancient cosmology does not describe the natural world. All right. So if you read the Bible or other ancient texts, you shouldn't read it as literal or as figurative, right? So you shouldn't see it as a true description of the natural world, nor should you think it's all metaphors or allegories, right? So it's not literal or figurative, it is symbolic. And what is a symbol? It is something that embodies a higher meaning. I don't know if you guys watched my Plato talk, but we talked what something metaphysical was, which was something that's related to a transcendent reality beyond what is perceptible to the senses. So, patterns, things like that, that would all, well, patterns, life truths, as wisdom, all of those things would count as metaphysical. So, the Bible and and science are often pitted against each other, and it's like choose which one you want, right? But in fact, if we properly understand how to approach the Bible, there's really no competition. It's two completely different spheres of knowledge. Science asks the question, what is it made of and how does it work? Whereas religion asks, what does it mean and what higher truth does it embody, or what truth does it embody? So it's different dualities. Science is matter and energy, right? Think of Einstein and his E equals mc square, whereas religion is meaning and substance. That's what it is concerned with. So we'll just start with the very beginning and we'll just discuss a little bit about, you know, what the Bible, how to think, how to contextualize the Bible. I think everyone knows this, even if they're not religious, right? The first line of the Bible is, in the beginning, God created. So basically just one source, something that is monotheistic, which is non-dual. So in the beginning, one source created duality. So two opposites. One source created two opposites. Something non-dual created something dual. So in the beginning, God created heaven and earth. So we just need to get this in our minds, understand this notion. And then when we talk about duality, there's a whole bunch, right? Often they use the words, they're under the general categories of heaven and earth. But if we understand it, it'll be meaning and matter, right? So meaning, mind, and spirit versus matter, material, and substance. Uh, Another duality is authority versus power, male versus female, seed versus sustenance, square point versus circle cycle, light air versus water earth, and space versus time, which we won't be able to get at today.
Could you please elaborate on the fact that Christians do not go to heaven? Did
Oh yeah, okay. So one more thing is like a lot of people think heaven is like a place we go to after we die, of like, I don't know, a parallel reality that is not material but like ghost like. It's really not at all that. That's a pretty, anyways, that's not at all accurate. And here, the guy who wrote this book, his brother, Jonathan Pajot, explains it a little bit. Let's get it.
could you please elaborate on the fact that Christians do not go to heaven? Did this misconception come from misguided materialist reading of Dante's Divine Comedy? Thank you for your work. Um, so there is a way in which, so the best way to understand it is that there is a way in which Christians go to heaven, in the sense that there is this ascension, right? This ascension towards that which is above always, this going up the mountain, ascending the divine ladder. And so you can see in all that imagery, this idea of ascending has to do with the notion of going to heaven. But the problem with when I say Christians don't go to heaven, it mostly has to do with this idea that people think that you die and you go to heaven. You don't die and go to heaven. You could say that you're reaching towards heaven your whole life. You're reaching towards heaven your whole existence. You're ascending the hierarchy, the spiritual hierarchy of virtues, your whole existence. And so the idea of dying and going to heaven, that's not how it works, right? It doesn't work. Not because you die that you go to heaven. Going to heaven is a transformation of the person.
There we go. So, I mean, that's probably what he just said there is probably completely different than most people's conception of heaven that they picked up from popular culture, since most of it is just caricatures of religion. So let's just take one of these dualities and explain it a little bit more. We'll take the light air versus water earth duality. And what we need to understand that, okay, so, back in the day, people were concerned about spiritual reality. So when they looked out at the world, that's how they described it. And that's how they described it. That's how they were talked. That was the medium they talked about, their realities, right? Anyways, I don't want to confuse you too much with this. What we need to understand is that the top layer is light, and then you have, let's say, like the atmosphere layer, which is air. Then the more you go towards the ground, you have water and then earth. But there's a progression of bright to obscure, clear to foggy, light to dark, ethereal to heavy, rare to common. Like there's a definite pattern which you see emerge. Yeah. And then the closer you are to the ground, the more something is said to be complex. And the higher up you are in the air, the higher up you are, let's say in, the term we just talked about, heaven, the more it is simple, right? Well, simple, I'm not going to open that can of worms right here. So one way to understand it, heaven would be pure meaning, whereas earth would be pure material. All right? I hope you guys are still following me on this. And now, this is what religion is about. It's about the union of dualities, meaning and matter. So, heaven and earth. It's the most fundamental notion of creation. The union of meaning and matter creates a symbol. So, a spiritual reality informs material, corporeal reality with meaning and purpose, whereas material reality expresses spirit by making it visible and tangible in the universe. That is what a symbol is, right? Uh, okay, so symbols express real things, real metaphysical truths, which otherwise, if we didn't have the symbols to them, they're like cut off from, we can't talk about them, right? There's no way to capture them and bring them into our world. They stay out there somewhere, and not much we can do about that. But they are real things, real realities we need to talk about. Now, I wasn't sure if I was going to include this because we're kind of like going very far away from religious symbolism, but I think it still helps us capture like the a meaning behind an object. So here we are. We'll talk about certain product symbolisms at a very, basic level.
Oh, I think this is a Coke can. Is that what it is? No. but it's good enough for me if I want to drink a bit of Coke out of it. God only knows what it is. You know, if you go into communist China and you start advertising these things, then what are they? Because this thing tells a story, right? What's the story? Like, really, do you need Coca-Cola? No. It's like, it's a bit of frippery, you know, it's an unnecessary luxury. And so when you send this little Coke can off to communist China, this thing screams stupid individuality all over. And God only knows how it undermines the state. You know, and if you're not thinking about that, you're not thinking. Think about what happens when we export cars. What does a car say? It says, hey, you can go wherever you want, whenever you want, you don't have to tell anybody at all. It's like, you want a political statement? Wrap it up in metal and ship that thing off. And everybody goes, whoa, I'd really like to have one of those. It's like, poof, communism disappears with that. You know, there's nothing that says individuality and capitalism like a personal automobile. So don't be thinking that the things that appear in front of you are merely objects, because they're not.
Now, this presentation I made a long time ago. I didn't even have a chance to finish it, so I'm not sure. I kind of forget what's in this video, but we'll just watch
itself. And so the cross itself is not arbitrary, you know, and it's funny because you hear people argue about whether the cross was actually an actual cross like that, or whether it was just a post or something like that. And you know, people who talk about it that way are missing the entire point, which is that the shape of the cross is actually part of the mystery. It's part of the meaning, which is that it's the cross is something like a cosmic shape. It has everything in it because it has the middle, it has the center, and then it has a vertical, which is, let's say, heaven is the best way to understand the vertical itself. The verticality, right? And a ladder is heaven, and then it has a horizontal, which is earth, or which is the particular. And so the cross is the place where the invisibles and the ladder of heaven meets the particulars.
All right. Now, another one of the dualities I'll quickly explore is male versus female, because this is, you know, it's a topic that needs more clarity in society right now. So, you know, we talk about gender roles and all of these things, but most of these gender roles seem to be, you know, just taken from a particular place in time in the 1950s in the United States. But if we expand a little bit more, the male, I don't want to say role, I'll use purpose to make a distinction between like the perfect little family unit that we see in you know, those 1950s commercials. The male purpose is to lower meaning, right? To vulgarize meaning, to take those invisibles and to bring them down towards earth. Whereas the female purpose is to raise matter, to refine matter, to bring the substance up from the bottom towards the middle, let's say. Right? So we see that the male comes from above and goes down, whereas the woman starts down and goes up, and they need to meet. The male purpose is to provide seed, which contains great implications with very little basis in material reality. Whereas the female purpose is to flesh out the implicit meaning of the seed and to sustain the seed. The male purpose is to inform the soul, to provide spiritual guidance, not to sustain the body. So it's not about material sustenance. Whereas the purpose of the female is hosting, supporting, and expressing the, you know, the realities, the spiritual realities we just mentioned. And if we want to talk about symbolisms, let's say like making dough, making bread. Like if you read the Bible and you know, let's say they have a sacrifice, and you know, they put things out. Well, the one that symbolizes the male is making bread, right? You're taking flour, you're taking fine little substances, and you're bringing it down into one solid thing. Whereas the other one is you know, take an animal and then you refine it, you know, you pluck, let's say it's a chicken, you pluck the chicken and you make it ready. What do I have here? God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. Okay, I don't know what I'm going to say with that. Sexuality as a microcosm. Okay, yeah, so one thing we need to know is that Adam does not necessarily mean just Adam the male. It's Adam meant human, so it's like male and female. And so reproduce a small version through reunion of polarity. Father produces seed that implicitly contains essence of humanity. His purpose thus connected to heaven and language. The mother provides sustenance that makes the seed grow, right? Like pregnancy, breastfeeding, and all of that. Her purpose is thus connected to hosting, supporting, and expressing. And one thing, if we have just a materialistic perspective, the male role is greatly diminished. And, you know, I don't think anyone can argue that. That's what's happening in society right now when we're not counting, let's say, spiritual realities as true, you know. If it's all fantasy, well, whatever. Only females express a visible physical change, not males. Male provision of spiritual identity is disregarded, deemed not real. Yeah, okay. Another thing about like the same principle as the union, the lowering and the raising, while wisdom is the lowering of meaning towards earth, and understanding is the raising of earth towards heaven, right? And then the union of those things, when wisdom and understanding meet, that's when you have knowledge. It's again same principle as the symbol, but like it's not captured in a material thing. Well, I mean, I guess it is, but wisdom, you can think of it as a plan of a house. You lower an idea into reality. Understanding is you put that plan into action and you raise the structure. And then knowledge is the union of both when you actually have the house. Now, there's one more step to this, which is meta knowledge. So the purpose of life is knowledge through the union of the dualities, which we just talked about, right? Raw heaven, meaning without matter, joining with raw earth, matter without meaning. And it's the most fundamental notion of creation. Spiritual reality informs material reality with meaning and purpose. Material reality expresses spirit by making it visible and tangible in the universe. But meta knowledge is the ultimate goal, and that's where you include, you know, I guess sacred things. Not gonna get in. We can't get into this right now. Oh yeah, one thing that I wanted to do. I don't know if I should do it here. It's been, oh man, almost 20 minutes already. Verifying the stereotypes, right? I mean, I'm gonna be redoing these lectures anyways, or these presentations, but let's just quickly go through. You know, there's a thing saying that men are simple. Well, are men simple as basic, you know, or are they simple because of their association with the bright light ethereal thing? Again, it depends if you're talking in religious language or mainstream language. Another stereotype is that men's role is to provide, and as we saw, yeah, men are, you know, men need to provide, but they need to provide seed, which is more akin to providing an identity, not material stuff. Material stuff is the domain of women, as we saw, right? That's what's associated with the earth. And this is the weakness I find of evolutionary biology's rationality. Like it just doesn't make sense. They just take like things that are going on now, and they just use the past to explain it. Like, oh, back in the day, the men came back from hunting and provided food for the woman, so because of that, the women are attracted to resources from men. but for like survival reasons. But then again, that, I mean, I'll break that down a lot more some other time, but that just doesn't make sense at all. Evolutionary biology for those things, like it's just I don't know. It's just explaining away things. Men seek power. As we saw again, power is the domain of women. Men seek authority. And men don't cook, right? Women got to be in the kitchen. Well, that's not necessarily true again, right? We saw that. Well, anyways, I don't know where it says in the Bible that men do not cook. Yeah, there is. Women are associated with sustenance. That is true, but it's not limited to that. All right, that's all I got. That's all I can do right now. I haven't really touched these in a long time. They're kind of like presentations that are lying around unfinished, and right now I haven't been able to do that because there's a lot of work. And yeah, my season is starting. It's gonna pick up really soon, even more. So I'll probably see you guys in the new year because I'll take some. I don't. We'll see. In the winter sometime.